Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Unity tutorial. In this one I'll be showing you how to create item tooltip pop-ups. So if you've ever played any RPG or pretty much any game will have some kind of tooltip pop-up. So this is general for any kind of game really. I'm going to show you in a second how I've done it in my game. I've been remaking my game Hell that I've shown off in the past. I worked up to creating the tutorial, and then obviously over the year of me working on it I've learned a lot, and because my exams are over soon I plan on working a lot on it over the summer, and I'll be streaming that on Twitch actually, and I'll be getting into that after my exams. But before my exams start 1 week today, I do want to get out a video or two just to keep you guys going with something. So I've seen not many videos of these on YouTube. I've seen a few people do them in different ways, but there are certain things about them that I'm not quite a fan of. Like, you need to make it so that the text box dynamically sizes. I'm actually just going to show you what I'm on about. So you know what I'm like trying to say. Here's like a health potion, the box fits to the health potion's description. You've got the name of the potion, grey name for its rarity, then it says common underneath, use, restore 5 health. Doesn't actually do anything yet, but the point is you can put whatever you want. Max stack 3, sell price 1. Then here we got a speed potion. So they're both potions, but notice how like the box size actually changes. Now I've not hard coded that. That is dynamic, so you can put whatever you want and it'll still work. That has a different use, it's rare, and the colour of the text changes. And then over here we've got a spell, which is a different class entirely, but it also says the name, and instead of rarity, the colour of the text goes to the element colour, so I'll show you how to do that. We've got mana cost 20, cast time 1, launches a ball of fire, and that's all using the same script to do the actual displaying. It's just a bit of fiddling with some UI elements, but it's not that bad, and then a tiny bit of code really, but that's it. So I'm going to show you how to set this up, and one thing I'm going to mention in my upcoming video, which I did do a channel post about, is I'm going to be using all my projects from now on are going to be publicly available on my GitHub page, so I will put a link to that in the description. If I forget, then remind me in the comments, or you could just go and try and find me on GitHub, Dapper Dino or Dapper Coding, you'll go find it somewhere. And yeah, I'm going to do that for all my projects from now on, so you don't have to be a Patreon supporter to actually get access to them, but obviously Patreon is still going to help me quite a bit, so if you do want to help support, then that's still an option. And before we get into this, I'm going to plug it. So I want to say thanks to my patrons, with special thanks to Thomas Hustler, Remy Baldwin, and Phil Bourne for their donations on Patreon this month. If anyone else is able to help support the channel, then that would be greatly appreciated. And as I said, my projects are open source now, so obviously anyone can just get access to them and do what they want with them anyway. So let's get into it, and I'll push the changes at the end of the video. So I'm going to push this over here in case I need to go back to it and actually remember what the hell I'm doing, but I should be fine. So what I've created is I've created this project, and as I keep saying, you'll have access to it anyway, so I don't have to cover everything. I've created a canvas, scaling, whatever, doesn't matter. And I've got 2 images, no code yet, don't worry, you've not missed any code. And I've sorted it into folders. So these 2 items are just going to be 2, different things that I'm going to be able to hover over and have pop-ups happen. So I'm going to get into this pretty quickly. At least now if I put stuff on GitHub, I don't have to... I still want to explain stuff properly, but I don't have to explain literally everything, because if you are unsure, you can either ask below or you can go find it in the project, so that's pretty cool. Just make sure you're using the same version of Unity so there's no problems. I'm on the newest stable version at this point, which is 2019.1.0 F2 or whatever that is. Anyway, I'm going to make a class called item button. Now just keep in mind, whenever I make any classes and code in this, I'm doing it with... this scope in mind. So obviously for my own game it's going to be a big RPG, whatever, but this project is going to be just this. So certain things you might have to refactor to your own game, which that is part of the goal of programming, is taking someone else's code and making it work for your own. That is a pretty useful skill to know. So I'm actually going to use a namespace so that if any of you want to import these projects, you can take the code across and actually import the different namespaces. So your code, if you have 2 classes of the same name in different namespaces, you don't get the conflict. So I'm going to call it Dapper Dino dot, and then what is it, Tooltip UI. So this one is going to be to do with item info. So obviously we need to make quite a few classes, but they're all going to be really small anyway. So this item button needs to store an item, so serialized field private item, which we haven't made yet, so now's a good time to go and make that. I'm just going to do it through here, add a new item and call it item. Obviously it's not a Unity default class, it gives you like a normal C# one. So I'm going to say namespace dapperdino.tooltipui public class item of type scriptable object. Oh, it's just compiling. Not compiling, sorry, it's just loading it. Scriptable object. And we have to import Unity for that. Alright, so what does an item have? All right, yeah, that's up to us, you know, serialized field, private, string, name. So that's going to tell me something's wrong because name already exists, that's fine. Put private new string name. We'll just give it fewer things. String description. And we might want private int sell price. It could go on, I can do whatever you want. But the point is, this is what like every item has, right? Every item's going to have these things. So what we actually want to do now is we want to make a function that can be called from any of these types of items to get their display info. So obviously different classes of item like consumable, spell, whatever, like ammunition, they're going to display different things. So you want to make a function that all of these have that return their text essentially. So what we want to do is we're going to make a function in the base class which is going to be abstract. So this should be abstract. And we want a public abstract string because it's going to return a string, like get, what should we call it, like get info, like get info get tooltip info text, right? So that means anything that inherits from this class has to have a function that does that, essentially returns a string. So this is all we really need for this. What I'm actually going to do though is I'm going to say everything that is one of these has to have a colored name. We'll go with that. So if I go down here, public string name with uppercase, get return name. What that means is, because this is private, this string, we can't actually access this externally, but if we ever need to know the name, we can get this one. And the point is, because it's a get return name, if you mouse over this, it says get. We can't set it. So externally, if we get access to this, we can't actually change it, because you don't want to accidentally change the name somehow, or the description, or the sell price. So using these getters is actually very useful. Now in other languages like Java, you would actually write a function to get it. This is the same, it's C#'s way of doing it. You can still write a getter function, but this does the same job. So string colored name. Now I'm actually gonna just make this be an abstract string. Now as you know about things that are abstract, it means that you don't have to define the logic in the current script. It just means that if something inherits from it, it then has to, you know, say what it is. Now the reason we have colored name and like the raw name is because, for example, spells, as I showed in my game, get their colored text from their element type, whereas items like consumable and whatever, they get their stuff from their rarities. Now this item base class is, you know, able to go into spells as well as items. Item is just, you know, anything you can store on a hotbar or in an inventory. That's what I mean. I don't mean a physical item. A spell could be an item. And we also want this. We might not even want a description. Let's just get rid of that, because it's up to you whether the thing inherits has a description. Because spells, instead of a description, might have like the actual, you know, how they work, which I guess it's a description. It's up to you how you want to lay it out. Let's just say a name, a spell price, and they have some data about them that we need to get. So let's create another class. We'll go with consumable like I have in my game. Just keep it simple. So let's just take this item class and we'll go copy paste. Whoops. Copy paste. And this item copy, we'll just make it consumable. Public, not abstract class, consumable of type item, because it inherits. And then we can do the create asset menu, file name equals new consumable, menu name. This is for creating a new instance in Unity if you haven't used it before. We'll say the menu name is like items/consumable, so we can have a folder for them all. Alright, this is telling me is a problem because we don't implement colored name and the get tooltip info thing. So let's just put override string, because we're going to override and put the functionality in here. So we have to return a string of some kind, so I'll do that in a second. The name is fine. We don't actually have to have this code in here because it's already done in our parent class, so we can get rid of that. Same with the sell price, sorry, you don't need that either. The colored name, so we need to actually say how the colored name works. Like, how do we get the colored name? So we're going to have a rarity. So, well, let's create another class. You know, it's jumping all over the place, but ideally we'd all have this set up already, but I'm going from scratch. So rarity. So a rarity, as far as I'm aware and as far as I care in this, for dapperdino.tooltipui, public public class rarity. A rarity is just a scriptable object again, which is requiring Unity engine. A rarity has a public string name. Well, we'll go with serialized field private string name. Just like earlier, it needs to be new string name because that's how it works. And the only other thing I'm going to give a rarity is a color, so private color. And we'll just call it rarity color, maybe. We'll just call it text color. And then we want to make the getters, so string name get return name. I want to do it for color as well, public color text color. Just make sure these ones are capitalized and these aren't. That's just the way they do it. That's like the standard text color. So we can get these variables from other classes, but we can't change them by accident. Obviously, I should put return there. All right, now this class is done. We don't really need to do anything else. I mean, we can just put create asset menu and just leave that as it is. It's fine. Rarity is done. So let's say an item has a rarity, right? So I'm gonna say, as well as the color name stuff, whatever, we also have a rarity in here. So I need to say serialized field private rarity, like so. We don't really need to access a rarity. I'm not going to make a getter for it, but for the colored name, we have to convert the rarity into add it to the name. Sorry, get the color from it. It's a bit weird how the syntax works for this. Essentially, you can use tags like in HTML. So if I just expand this out, colored name get. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the hex code for the color. So obviously in the rarity, we're going to set a color. We want to convert that into the hex code. So hex color is equal to color utility, which is a class in Unity. Yep, the Unity engine.color utility. And there's a useful function called toHTML string RGB. And if I just pass in the rarity's color, text color, this hex now is the hex for that color, which is very helpful. And then, because this property is meant to be returning a string, we want to return $, and then we're going to do color equals hashtag hex color. So we're going to shove the variable in there, close tag. Then we want to put the name, and then slash color. So this string, when it's actually displayed on the UI, won't look like that. This will actually just make this text the name of the item, which might be, health potion. Because it's surrounded by this color tag with a color supplied there, it'll change the color of the text. So let me just see what's the problem here. Oh, we have to get rid of abstract and put override. And just for the sake of, simplicity, let's just compact that. So the color name is now hidden. It's all good. And, I guess if we want to, we're going to put public rarity get return. Rarity. Whoops. Return rarity. Cool. Now, for this tooltip info text thing, we need to use a string builder. We don't need to, but this makes it much easier. Well, not easier, sorry, it makes it more efficient. In Unity, or at least in C#, when you're making strings, every time you add strings or essentially do stuff with strings, you're making garbage, which is the technical term. And at the end of frames, or at certain points, basically, there's a garbage collection where it needs to get rid of this garbage, this leftover data as such. And strings make a lot of it, and that can lag your game. It can have like jittery frame rate. It doesn't necessarily make your game lag all the time, but it'll make lots of freezes and lots of jitters. So if you use string builder, it actually stops that. So we're going to make a new string builder. So you don't have to use this every time you use a string, but it's good when you're appending lots of strings together. So if we use string builder, it's actually a system class if I remember correctly. Yeah. So we're going to call it builder equals new builder. And now we want to essentially build our string. So what's our string going to do? Well, builder.append the rarity name .append line. So essentially it's going to do the rarity's name, new line. Then we want to do builder.append, and we're going to give the use text. So we actually, because it's a consumable, we're going to add the use text. So serialized field private string use text equals you know, use colon something, and then let's say public string use text. I mean, actually, no, we're not going to be getting that from anywhere else, so it's fine. We'll just leave that as it is. Append. And then what we want to do is we want to make this text green, or at least I do. So I'm going to do color equals green, close tag, and then the actual text will be use colon space, and that'll be the same for all of these. So now I want to append the actual use text in the side of the color tag, so it makes the use text go green. And then after that we'll say .append, and we want to close the tag, so /color. And then at the end I want to do an append line just to go to the next line. Then builder.append, and what else? We'll just do the cell price. So cell price colon space, and then we'll do .append the cell price. Did I not? No, I didn't. Okay, so essentially here we want to say public int cell price get return cell price. So now we can get the cell price dot append. This is up to you, but I'm going to put gold. So after the price, it'll just say gold. All right, and then we want to return builder dot toString. So finally, it's taking all of this data we formatted into a single string without having all these different garbage strings chucked around the place. So this is the text we want to display on the UI, which is very useful. So finally, we actually want to go and now make it so we can, physically display it on the UI when we hover over the item. So this item button class currently doesn't do anything, if I remember correctly. No, it just stores an item, which we can set now. So I'd obviously for this set it manually in the UI, but I might develop the system more in future videos. So as you see, if I go over to this item 1, you'll see that it needs an item. So let's go into assets, create a folder, call like rarities. And if I just go make like 2 rarities, so we've got rarity, rarity underscore rare. So I'll just call it rare and set this to be a blue of some kind. Make sure the alpha's up. By default it's not. And then we'll go make another one, so rarity dot epic, and then we'll change the name to be epic and the color to be a purpley pink, like so. And then back here I want to make another folder to store our items, so items, and create a new consumable. So we'll say item underscore consumable underscore, let's call it health potion. Okay, and we'll just say small, we'll just call it health potion, why not? Health potion. You can choose whatever date you want to have here. Sell price is 10. The rarity, this is going to be rare. Use text, Oh, we don't want to have use before it really, because that's already done. We just want to say heals the player. Don't really have any more data to put there right now. Let me just quickly go in here before I forget. Make sure the consumable just kind of says something there, whatever, as the default text. Cool. So that's now on the left one. I can put the health potion, and if I just go make another one, so item consumable, item underscore consumable underscore mana potion. Let's say this mana potion costs a lot more, like 300 gold, and it's an epic item. It's really up to you, design it how you want. Let's put something else as what it does. So something heals the player, something else. It's up to you. Cool, so item 2 is going to be, well, we need to actually add the item button and say this is the item for mana potion. But as I've said, if you're doing like an inventory system, you would have all the item setting automated. And as I keep saying, yeah, I will expand this further. You have access to the project, so when I do update it, you can always just update the repo. You can pull the new updates. But anyway, now we just need to make it so we can, display the item on the UI. So on this tooltip canvas, we want to go and want to create a new panel. Or new image, it'll be fine. So this is where I'm going to need to reference my other projects to remember exactly how I set it up, because it was quite a complex thing. It took a lot of fiddling, like a lot of fiddling. So on the canvas we have a background image essentially. So background, and I'm going to set it to be a grayish because that's what I did in my own one. And this is going to have a content size fitter. Also, this shouldn't raycast because it. I'm going to take off the raycaster because we don't want to actually block cursor, like the cursor with this. It should just be visual. Is this my eyes or no? That is fine. It's just because the background's grey. All right, so we want this to be preferred size, so it actually fits to its child contents. Now, because there's no children, it's actually set itself to 0 and it's essentially gone. But when we add the children, it'll be fine. And we want to add a vertical layout group, so because we want the text to go vertically when we add new stuff. So we're going to say that the padding is what, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. Spacing 0 actually. Make sure that's 0. It would look a bit weird otherwise. And we want to align it to the upper center so it kind of works its way down. And I'm going to set the pivot to be 0, which is at the bottom of the thing, because I always want to place this tooltip UI above the item I'm hovering. So it'd be very easy to have the pivot at the bottom. You'll see why when I set up the offset. And then all of this is fine. So I'm going to now, from here, go to... Well, I'm just going to set that to 0. Doesn't really matter. We're going to set that automatically in code. Then on the background, we need to create a new UI. Oh, we need to have another background here, and you'll see why in a second. So UI image. Now I'm going to make this a darker. I'm going to go for nail black, but not actually black. And then we want a layout element on this. Layout element. And we'll say ignore layout. Now this is, let me make sure I've got all the scaling right. So I want this to stretch to the parent and have some padding. So 10, 10, 0, 10, 10. Make sure all that's right, all the scaling. Might as well turn off the raycast, don't need it. Okay, now this is very small right now, but it exists with its 10 padding. The reason it's so small is because there's no data on it, but this box will expand as we add data into the child. So this is, I'll call this the main background, and this is the text background. Now the thing is, the actual info text that I want to put in isn't going to be a child of this because it messes up the actual... It won't affect the scaling. The scaling on here is only on the child, but I do want another background. You could probably miss out one of these steps and slightly redesign the look, but I really like how it ends up looking. So I'm going to use TextureMesh Pro. I'm going to import it. This is going to take 1 second. Doesn't really matter. I'm not going to bother setting any actual like fonts or anything. I'm just going to use the default. So this info text that we're going to have here, as you see, it's now adapted to this size. We want this to be the info text. The info text has a width of, well, I went with 400 in my game, and then the height and everything, that really doesn't matter. That's going to be adjusted manually in code, but we can set a default, doesn't matter. So the way I did it in my game, just to check, like, to have like a default to show it was working, was this. Now we do need to, on this, add another component in a second. So I'm gonna just probably shrink the text because I want this text size. It depends how much you want to fit on. I in mine went for 27.5, so why not just keep it the same? And everything else I think is the same, so that's actually fine. Now the other things we need to add on the bottom here, let's just compact this. I'm going to add a layout element with flexible height, because obviously the height needs to change depending on the text, and a content size fitter with unconstrained there, but the vertical is preferred. And now, if you actually watch me do it manually, if I add more to the info text, just keep going down, it actually adjusts this tooltip to, you know, fit how much data you need to. So really now the only job is shoving the data onto this text element. So that's what I'll do now. Obviously this video is probably going to go on quite long, but you know, that's fine actually. Sometimes longer videos are good, you get a lot more in them. I could have split this up, but you know, some people, I might as well just do it all at once, why not? I'm going to keep going. So now that we've got this and it exists, let's just apply all. That can mess things up if you do that. It's fine. Look, no, it's just a bit of a weird thing. But let's set the canvas. We should have the canvas on another game object. So let me just reset that. I'll call this tool tooltip pop-up. And I'm going to break this, unpack prefab completely, child it to this. Put that back. And now I'm going to go back to my prefabs, and I'm going to remake this as a prefab. Don't care about that one anymore. Cool. And yeah, let's disable the canvas so it's hidden. We only want to show it when we want to show it. So now, we want to make it on these things with item data. We want to write a script on here where the hover pop-up is. Want to write a script to handle displaying the info. So I called it on mine. If I go to scripts, create a new script, tooltip pop-up. And once we made that, just so I don't forget, let's go put that on there and apply to the prefab. So the tooltip pop-up, the final thing we're going to make, namespace dapperdino.tooltipui. Let's shove the class in the namespace. We have access to all the other things in namespace, it's all good. So what do we need? Well, CLS field, private, game object. We need reference to the pop-up canvas object to be able to enable and disable it. We want reference to the rect transform for the pop-up object, and you'll see why later. It's effectively reference to the transform, but specifically the rect transform, which is used for UIs. And we want reference to private text mesh pro UGUI, which is just the text for text mesh pro, called the info text. And it would be nice to have a vector-free offset, so we can choose how high to spawn it above where our mouse is. CLS for private float padding. Now this is the padding of, it's optional, but I'm going to make it so when I move my mouse around, the text moves, like the box moves, but I don't want it to go off the top of the screen or off the sides. So I'm going to write some code in here. I'm actually just going to copy and paste it because it's very simple, but it just takes quite a while to write it out, so I might as well copy and paste it. You can read it yourself on the repo. And it's just a bit of code to stop the box going off the side of the screens, essentially. We also want to store private canvas pop-up canvas. Wait a second, actually. Let me just go back here. Because I just realized... No, it's fine, actually. We can get the canvas privately. So in the await function, we'll get the actual canvas from the canvas object, get component canvas. So rather than setting two things in the UI, we can just do it here. And then in the update function, we want this thing to follow our cursor, the actual pop-up UI. So follow cursor. Sorry. And we'll make the private void follow cursor. And this is exactly the thing I'm going to copy and paste. So let me just copy and paste it. I'll quickly give you a explanation of what it is. Looks very scary. But as I said, all this is going to do is say if it's active, so if it's not active, we'll return. If the actual object is active because we're hovering something, we want to ideally set the offset, set the pop-up to where our mouse is plus some offset that we define here. Because we want it to go not where our mouse is, maybe a bit up. But the problem is, if your item's near the top, the UI is going to be off the top of the screen, or if you're to the right, the edge of the box might be off the side of the screen. And it's really annoying because you still want to read an item even if it's at the right of your screen. So I'm calculating the distances between the edges of the box and the edges of the screen. I'm only doing 3 calculations because I'm doing top, left, right, because it's never going to go off the bottom. And even if it was, then you shouldn't have the offset be at the bottom. It would be a bit silly anyway. You don't have to do that calculation. And all it's going to do is, if I'm too far off the screen, it's going to push it back on. And you'll see why it actually looks pretty good. It works well. So, copy that if you want, or you can, pause it, take it, design it yourself, make it better than I did. I don't know. That's just the way I did it. I couldn't find any better way online, to be honest. And yeah, so you can get it from the project if you need to on the GitHub. Public void display info. This is the one function we really care about. It needs to take in an item. And all it's going to do is it's going to set the text to be the text we've defined back in the item class. So we'll use a string builder again. String builder. And we want to do builder.append. So the first thing we want to do is we want to probably make the actual size of the title bigger. So I'm going to say size equals 35. I'm hard coding it. You could do this dynamic. You could set it as a variable at the top, but this is never going to change. So we're going to say the size 35 specifically. We're going to append the item colored name, which we've handled internally. Then we're going to append the closing tag to make the size of the rest of it go smaller. Then we're going to say .append line to end that off. And then below that, we want to append builder.append the item get display, not get hashcode, get info text, the thing we wrote earlier. We get all that string, and we're going to add that on the end. And now we want to say info text is equal to the builder.toString. So now we've actually set it in the UI. But there's one other thing. We need to set the pop-up canvas object to be active. And this is a weird thing that I've never had to use before, but basically the actual size of the box will sometimes not resize correctly, or it just won't resize at all. So I have to use this thing called layout rebuilder. I think it's part of the Unity UI class namespace. And it has a thing called force rebuild layout immediate. And you can pass in what a rect transform to rebuild, so the pop-up object. So it's forcing it to recalculate the size. And it's not like inefficient because I'm only telling this one object to redo its thing, and it has to be done, otherwise it just won't resize correctly. It took me ages to figure that out, and apparently that's what it exists for, so that's quite nice. And we'll have another function for hiding, so hide info, and that'll simply just pop-up canvas object dot set active false. So when we want to display, we set all the data, and when we don't want to, we hide it. And then when it is active, this is happening. When it's not happening. So we can close that class. And now we just need to access it from the item button. So I pointer enter, is that it? Using Unity engine.event systems. Alright, what is it? I forget the namespace. The interface. I pointer enter handler. Okay, yeah. So when the pointer enters this item button, we want to do this. And we want I pointer exit handler. We'll have another function. So now we just need to say, essentially, display and hide. So you could do this in many different ways. You could use the event system like I'm using, but I don't have time to set that up now. You could use instances and singletons, which I wouldn't recommend, but you can do it. Or the way I'm going to do it just for the sake of this video, I'm going to get a private reference to the Tooltip UI pop-up, just to make life much easier for this. So display info. It needs an item, we'll pass in our item. When we stop hovering, Tooltip UI pop-up dot hide info. Hide info. And now we should be done. So I'm gonna just, hope it works, and then we can end off the video there. It's been quite a long video, but I hope you guys have enjoyed. Obviously, I have done a lot in this video. It's been quite long, but you have access to this whole project. And if you want any improvements or any new features, just feel free to tell me, and I can add them. And then wait, have I actually done everything? I need to set the references. So the canvas object is the canvas. The pop-up object is, I can't remember which one it is actually. Is it? It might be the canvas as well. Give me 1 second. I think it is. No, it's actually the main background. Sorry, that's the pop-up. That's the thing we need to resize. The text is on the here. Okay. I went with a 50 pixel offset and a padding of 25 on the screen. Let's just set all those things to the prefab. And on these item buttons, just for now, because it's the only way I'm going to be able to do it for this video in time, is just manually set reference to the pop-up thing. But now, hopefully, I hope, when I mouse over these things, yep, mana potion, epic, use something else, sell price 300 gold. Health potion, blue, rare, heals the player, sell price 10 gold. And obviously when I mouse off it, it stops. And it moves with the item. Now if I artificially move this up to the top of the screen, you'll see how it actually has that padding of whatever I set at the top of the screen. It won't go any higher, so even if I put this even higher, it's still going to stop at the top of the screen. Now, actually, it doesn't... Oh, no, it does like that. It still works. It's not ideal, but you ideally shouldn't put items up there. But as you see, whenever I move my stuff around, it still works to wherever it is. If I put it at the side, it stops at the side, rather than going off the edge. So yeah, I hope you like this video. Because it's a GitHub repo, I've never actually done this on anyone else's project, but I'm sure you can like actually make adjustments, and like I can see the adjustments you've made, and if I wish to, I can pull them or add them or change or whatever. So feel free to make your own additions to this. I could keep developing this in future videos if you want to make it more dynamic. Like, well, it's already dynamic enough because you just have to make more item classes of different types and how to display their info. But I hope you learned quite a lot from this. Feel free to go look through the project in the description. Leave comments of what you want to see next. Keep in mind I can't upload very many videos over the next few weeks, but at the start of next month I will be done with exams and I'll be doing videos all the time. I'll be doing streams. You know, I might actually not be doing like daily videos, but I'll be doing videos every 2 or 3 days with streams in between, so there'll be plenty of content. So yeah, if you haven't already, leave a like and subscribe. It'd mean a lot. Check out the Discord server, link is in the description below. But apart from that, thanks for watching and goodbye.